Hello guys, my name is Maulana Izzul Haq and I want to tell you about this thesis. This thesis is the effectiveness of using small group interaction in teaching reading comprehensive. And this thesis was written by Mrs. Umiyati at Department of English Education at UIN, Universitas Islam Negeri, and it is located at Jakarta. And this thesis is concerned about 93 pages. So Mrs. Umiyati created this thesis, and he want to tell about the audience about the using small group in the comprehensive reading. So Ms. Umiyati want to tell about the objective of this research is to find the empirical evidence of the differences between students' achievement in learning reading, which is concerned with descriptive text by using small group interaction and whole class teaching. So the student divided into small group. If we have 40 students, and then we should make a small group like 5 group and 8 member into each group. So at the same time he can use the small group to comprehensive reading. So Mrs. Umiyati tell us about this is an experimental research that the writer took two different classes into two different teaching techniques, and the writer administrated a pretest to know that the class have relatively the same background knowledge. So like this, for the example, the teacher want to know about the the student's background. So the teacher wants to the teacher will give the exam or the test for the student with different style teaching. Yes, so the writer can know about the student's background knowledge, and then the reader use the test to calculate the data and the test hypothesis. So the result of the calculation from this research can be more more detailed than other method. So the reader want to tell us about the techniques, about data sampling, and then the writers will give about this thesis, will give knowledge about this thesis. And finally, based on this thesis is finding on the research that the reader gave some suggestion, and the writers hope this thesis will be useful for improving of education in Indonesia. So it is a very interesting purpose for the writer, because she want to she want to be useful in this thesis, want to be useful in the educational in Indonesia. So at this chapter, the chapter is divided into 4 chapters, and the first chapter is introduction, and at introduction there are about 6 point. At the first is the background of the research, and second is the limitation and formulation of the problem, and the third is the objective of the research, and the fourth the significance of the research, and the fifth the method of the research, and the last is the organization of the research. So I think the writer tells about the background, and all of this thesis is more fluent, more was it um more complete than he thinks. So I think she want to be useful in educational system in Indonesia. So I'm very appreciated it. At the chapter 2, there is theoretical framework. There are three groups, and at the third group divided into some cases. For the example, at the one point there is small group introduction, and at the small group introduction there are the understanding of small group interaction, the advantages of small group, the disadvantages, and the application. So I think at this point the writer want to tell us about disadvantages and advantages of using this method. So I think it will be useful in and will when we will be a teacher, and I think this advantages or disadvantages method can be useful when we teach our class. So at the second point, and there is world class teaching, and at the world class teaching, and there are 3 points: the understanding of world class teaching, the advantages, and then the advantages of world class teaching. So the writers want to tell about this world class teaching to us. If we I think when I read this thesis, I think the writers want to tell us, if we want to use this world class teaching method, we should we should know about advantages and disadvantages, and then we can choose the method for our learning method. And then the third point is reading comprehensive. This is the important point, and there are around 7 points at this reading comprehensive. And number 1 is the understanding of reading comprehension, and the second is the objective reading, and number 3 is the types of reading text, and number 4 is the factor of influence reading comprehension, and the fifth is the ways to improve about reading comprehension. The sixth is teaching reading in his junior high school, and then the last is hypothesis. At this point, when I read this thesis, I think this is the important point, because the writer analyze about this method, this reading comprehensive method, because for example at the point 1, and the she wrote the understanding of reading comprehensive. So if we want to use this method, we should understand first, about this method, and then they write another point, and then another point is useful. For the example, the objective reading, So when we want to give about our material, we can choose the object about what what the student should read. And the types of the factor is also important. And the last is hypothesis. And when we false about this material, and we can look at the hypothesis, so we can learn about our mistakes, or when there are some mistakes, and we can improve our teaching method. And then there are chapter 3, the implementation of the research. At this chapter 3, the writer Mrs. Umiyati make 2 points, and at the 1 point is methodology of the research. At the methodology of the research, there are about 6 points. For example, number 1, the place and time of research, the objective of the research, the population of and sample of the research, the techniques of data collecting, and the technique of data analysis, and then the last is the procedure of the research. So I think at this point and this chapter is tell us about her method to make this thesis, like the technique, the data, the analysis, the research, and then we can try it when we want to make about this thesis. And then the second point is the finishing of the research, and there are three points in the finding of the research. Like the example number 1, the descriptive of the data, and number 2 is the analysis of the data, and number 3 is the interpretation of the data. So I think at this point, the writer tells about what he do in the research. For the example, like and what he learned at the research. For example, like the descriptive, the analysis, and the interpretation. So I think this is important for us to, if we want to make this thesis, like if we want to make this thesis, or make a thesis like this, I think this is important for us to reference, I think, or any like that. And then the last chapter is chapter 4, is conclusion and suggestion. At this chapter, there are conclusions that what he write is what the importance of the thesis is on this chapter. So the writer make a conclusion about chapter 1 until chapter 3, and then make a conclusion for the writer, and then also make a suggestion for the writer in this chapter. I think it is about the last page, and then the writer want to make us easier to understand about this thesis. If we want to easier to understand this thesis, we can look at the conclusion or suggestion, so we can understand about this thesis more easily. And then is, I think this thesis is useful in the learning education, in the educational learning. So if we confuse about what should I do when when in this reading section, and we are confused about the teaching method. So we can see at this thesis and then learn about this method. So like the two methods for the different background knowledge, and then other methods. So at least what if we confuse about the method, we can see this. And I think Mrs. Umiati, have you great work. You have a great work, and this thesis is help help the teacher to find about his or her learning method. So it's all for me. I think it's enough for me. Good job, Mrs. Umiati. I appreciate it. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.